Hello, this is Mr. S, and today we're going over ecological footprints. So the learning objective is to explain the variables measured in an ecological footprint, and the essential knowledge is ecological footprints compare resource demands and waste production required for an individual or society. And we're trying to use data analysis as our suggested skill we'll practice today. Explain what the data implies or illustrates about environmental issues. So an ecological footprint is a measure of how much a person or group consumes expressed in the area of land. You can see here, these are all of the things that go into a ecological footprint of an individual or group. And the factors which land are required for are food production, raw materials, housing, electricity production, and disposing waste produced in landfill space. So we've improved the quality of our lives all over the world, and humans are suffering much less now as a result. But while doing so, we've depleted a lot of the natural resources and destroyed a lot of ecosystems, right? So ecological footprint is a little different than carbon footprint because the ecological footprint is measured in land, which is usually a global hectare because that's what they use in most of the world. It's a biologically productive hectare of 2.5 acres. So how much land, biological land, does your lifestyle require? And there's a carbon footprint is measured in the tons of CO2 that is produced per year. So here you see this calculated your ecological footprint, your carbon footprint, and this is the CO2 emitted in tons and the total percent of your ecological footprint. So a lot of your ecological footprint will come from the carbon footprint because land is used to mine those fossil fuels. All the CO2 released from an individual or group's consumption and activities. So material goods, food production, and energy use, all of those things go into the carbon footprint as well. Okay, so things that affect your footprint are the wealth, so that generally directly influences the carbon and ecological footprint. So larger houses, more travel, more resources needed for material goods like cars. Meat consumption requires more land, more water, and more energy. So the more meat people eat, the larger their footprint goes. Fossil fuel usage, heating, electricity, travel, plastic, etc. The things that decrease your footprint are renewable energy use like wind, solar, or hydroelectric. Public transportation, so less gas, plant-based diets, and less consumption, less travel, less energy use. So if the whole world lived like us, ecological footprint can be expressed in the number of Earths required if the entire world consumed the same level of resources. So right now, if everyone consumed the way that the average American does, the average is 5.1 Earths. So 5.1 Earths worth of resources is needed if the entire world consumed the resources of the average American. That's how many planets it would take to supply the US. And you can kind of see on this diagram, the present-day footprint of the global population is bigger than the planet. So if everyone had the US lifestyle, there'd be way more planets. The current global footprint, as you can see here, is 1.85 Earths, meaning each year humanity consumes 1.85 times what the Earth can produce. So the Earth is, we are consuming more than we can produce, right? All right, so look at this graph and the different things that it points out for the average per capita ecological footprint of major Canadian cities from 2010 to 2015 and answer the question. Alright, so a person's ecological footprint is the total amount of land required to offset a person's carbon emissions. The table below shows ecological footprint data for 5 different students. Each value is a measure of the number of hectares per land required. So look at this table carefully and see if you can answer the question about it. And finally, here's your practice free response question. So describe one factor that accounts for the difference in carbon footprint between the United States and Uganda. Explain one environmental consequence of this factor. So you can look back on the slides if you need to, if you want to do a little research. Go ahead. Good luck.